Kamala Harris, and why it's important to discuss the fact that she is not an African American. Why do I say that? And why is that important? Well, number one, if she's not an African American and she's getting credit for being the first African American this and the first African American that, then she's taking that title from someone who really is an African American woman. She's taking it. That African American will be considered the second African American woman because she'll have to stand behind Kamala. Kamala's the first African American. Supposedly, that's what you hear. It's not true. She's faking it. She's giving the perception that she's an African American to advance her career. Very similar to Elizabeth Warren and probably many other Democrat liberals who have tried to pretend they're something else for their career for whatever reason. So why do I say Kamala Harris is not African American? Well, number one, her mother is from India. She gets her pretty brown skin from her mother from India. India is not Africa. India. It's a whole nother culture. Her mother's a Hindu. They believe in gods that have, 20 arms. They have gods, elephant gods, that they believe in. It's a totally different culture than African Americans. Her mother was only here 3 years, fresh off the boat from India, when she gave birth to Kamala. Who is her father? Well, her father is a very light-skinned Jamaican man. Very light-skinned. He's a biracial Jamaican man. Her father, light-skinned Jamaican. Now, if your father's from Jamaica, even a biracial white and black man from Jamaica, okay, are you considered an African American when you come to America? No. Jamaica has a whole nother culture than African Americans. African Americans had to deal with slavery like 200 years ago. They had to deal with the Jim Crow laws in the 50s. They had to deal with segregation and then desegregation. They had to deal with all kinds of things. That's their culture, their history. That's their history makes and helps inform their culture and who they are. Okay, we're all representing our history. That's their history. That's not the history of the Jamaican. The Jamaican has a totally different history and culture. Kamala wants to give the impression that she's African American. And she talks about, I listened to rap, I listened to Snoop Dogg in college. Well, Snoop Dogg's album wasn't even out when you were in college. That's why she has to make it up. Because she's really not from that culture. She's making it up. She's taking the title from a real African American woman who could become the first African American woman this and the first African American woman that. She's taking that title. Hindu from India, biracial man from Jamaica doesn't make you an African American. And we keep falling for this. That's why they keep doing it. Obama, too. He wasn't really a true African American. His mama and his grandmama who raised him were white. His father, who he barely knew, was African. African Americans have their own unique history. They're very unique in the world. They have a very unique history. You can't claim that history if your mother's from India and your father's a biracial from Jamaica. You can't claim that history if you were raised by your white mama and grandmama and your dad was from Africa. You can't claim that history. But yet they do. Barack Obama is considered the first African American to become president. It's not true. It's not true. Why is it important? Because again, they're taking the title away from somebody else who really will be the first African American man or African American woman to do this, that, and the other. But Obama, just like Kamala, Obama had only been in politics 18 months before he became president. Go look it up. He's only been in politics 18 months. It was all a con job. It was all made up. Obama's from an intelligence family. The intelligence community has been running this country for a long time. And the fake news media has been their lapdog. The fake media that led us down that road. And they're doing the same thing with Obama, not really telling us who he is, faking out, faking again, and denying the African American community the opportunity to be the first. To be the first president of the United States. because Barack Obama not African American, and he was also supposedly raised in Hawaii, where I'm at in Hawaii, and it is a whole nother experience when you're living in Hawaii, whether you're a haole, they call the white people haoles, whether you're a haole living in Hawaii or you're a popolo, that's what they call black people, whether you're popolo or haole, is a completely different experience living in Hawaii than it is mainland. So Obama was not the first African American president. It's a lie. He wasn't. We haven't had one yet. I think Kamala Harris trying to give the perception that she's an African American when she knows she's not, I think that's racist. I think that's taking something from the African American community you can never give back. Being known as the first African American woman when you're not. She's the one who's racist. Kamala Harris trying to fake out, trying to give everybody the perception that she's an African American when she knows she's not. She's from a whole nother culture, a whole nother world, Hindu, where they believe in Ganesh, the elephant god. You know, that's not very African American. I mean, come on, she's a faker. A faker. Another faker, just like Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren also faker. Back in the day, Harvard said Elizabeth Warren, that white-skinned, blue-eyed lady, was their only woman of color professor. And that's what they described Elizabeth Warren as, their only woman of color professor. So can you imagine all of the African American women that would come to Harvard and they'd go, "Oh, let me meet this only woman of color professor. I want to meet her." And they go meet Elizabeth Warren. They go see Elizabeth Warren. Can you imagine how that hurt their spirit to know that this white woman is considered their only woman of color? It's just crazy. It's crazy. It's like, yeah, Elizabeth Warren, she done hurt a lot of people playing on that perception of being a woman of color, which I don't like the phrase woman of color. I can't even believe I'm using it, because woman of color denotes that there's a woman of no color. I don't even like the term white and black, because those aren't even colors. Black isn't a color. Black is the combination of all colors. And white isn't a color. White is the absence of all colors. Really what we're dealing with is different levels of brown. You can go real dark brown. You can go real light brown. And sometimes pink. But we're not even dealing with white or black. And everybody's of color, except maybe albinos. And there's African American albinos. And there's, haole albinos. You get albinos coming every color. They're only the true white people here. So we've been really confused when we talk about race. They use it to put us in our place. They use it to separate us. Coming back to Kamala again, don't believe the hype. She is not African American. She's giving the perception to try to advance her career.